Hey besties, it's Michelle. I'm here to talk about Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. This is the 5th book in the Harry Potter series, and it's the 5th of my videos about the differences between the Harry Potter movies and books. These videos are perfect for people who haven't read the books in a really long time, or for people who have never read the books and they're just interested to know what the differences are. The idea for these started when watching Harry Potter with my husband, and I had to explain so many things. And one of my main frustrations was that there's so many things in the movies that are like really inaccurate. Something a bit of an introduction. One thing about this movie is that it's the first movie that's directed by David Yates, who is the last director of the Harry Potter movies. So he does 5, 6, 7, and 7 Part 2. Of all of the directors, he's my least favorite. There are some things that I like about these later movies that, I can attribute to him, but in general, he's not my favorite directing choice. The differences actually show the most in this movie. It's the most slimmed down, and it feels kind of unfair because I know the 5th book is very long, but it's like one of the best. It has some of the best arcs, some of the best character development, and we don't get a lot of that in the movie. Partially, there's just not time. Partially, I just feel like it's bad directing choice. The 5th one has almost no school time in it. It has no Quidditch in it. And it actually is, there is a different writer just for the 5th one. As far as like fun to watch in this, the 5th one is the one that I feel like I kind of want to skip. And it's not just like because of David Yates. I think the 6th movie really shines in some ways. Like it's really quotable and the actors really come into themselves more as older actors, and they just do such a good job. There's so many like iconic scenes in that one and quotes. But the 5th one is not so much. Beside a few lines, it's just not that memorable of a movie, in my opinion. I'm just going to go over some differences, and these are all going to be like big differences because there are so many differences between the movies and the books. Mainly it's things they just took out of the book, but there's also things that they had to change because they took out such huge pieces from the book. So here we go. The beginning of the book is pretty similar to the movie. It's Harry being isolated at the Dursleys, and then the Dementor attack, and then getting taken to the Order of the Phoenix headquarters, which is Sirius's house. One thing that's different is that they're at headquarters for like a month or something. They're there for quite a while. And one thing that happens while they're there is that Hermione and Ron get chosen as prefects. Now, they totally took this out of the movie. There was no prefects in the 5th year. And honestly, they don't talk about them being prefects very much in the book. But the scene where they get the prefects is really good for character development, and it's the beginning of Harry having a hard time keeping his emotions in check this entire year. This is the start of it. He's really kind of shocked that he didn't get it. He's kind of shocked that Ron got it, but it's almost more so that he's shocked that he didn't get it. And to make matters worse, Hermione has a misunderstanding and thinks that Harry got it, and she congratulates him and says how much she's not surprised in front of Ron. Let me read the excerpt. Hermione came tearing into the room, her cheeks flushed and her hair flying. There was an envelope in her hand. Did you get? She spotted the badge in Harry's hand and let out a shriek. I knew it, she said excitedly, brandishing her letter. Me too, Harry, me too. No, said Harry quickly, pushing the badge back into Ron's hands. It's Ron, not me. What? Ron's prefect, not me, Harry said. Ron? Said Hermione, her jaw dropping. But are you sure? I mean... She turned red as Ron looked around at her with a defiant expression on his face. It's my name on the letter, he said. Said Hermione, looking thoroughly bewildered. Well, wow. Well done, Ron. That's really unexpected, said George, nodding. So awkward. And so then Harry has some internal work to do. He has a lot of emotions about that. Something that makes this movie feel really different is there's no Quidditch. There's a lot of Quidditch in the book. There's also no Quidditch in the 4th movie, but there wasn't any in the 4th book either. That's because of the Triwizard Tournament. But this one, it's like they took all the Quidditch out, and there's so much in the book. And they just kind of moved it to the 6th one. Like, the things that are happening in this one kind of happen in the 6th one instead. Big thing is that Ron tries out for the Quidditch team as keeper, and he gets it. And just like the movie, the 6th movie, he's not very good. He's like best when nobody is watching him, but it's kind of a hard, like he doesn't do well, and he wants to quit after a little while, but they won't let him quit. Angelina Johnson, she's the captain, she won't really let him quit. And so it's like it's hard for him, and I mean it's hard for the whole team. But this is the year where they do the Weasley is Our King. So Slytherin sings a song called Weasley is Our King, which has like, they love, the lyrics essentially that they love Ron because he always lets the ball in. So he like helps them win. So it's after the 2nd week of Defense Against the Dark Arts classes that Hermione has the idea for Dumbledore's army. They meet in the Hog's Head, and there's like 28 students or something there. And notably, Cho brings her friend Marietta, and Marietta begrudgingly signs this paper, which is like the contract that they have, but she doesn't really seem like she wants to be there at all. Like, I do not know why Cho brought her. Next thing is Harry gets a letter from Sirius that just is like, it says like same time, same place, which is about meeting in the common room through the flu, and it's like Hedwig gets hurt. It's obvious that she's been like snatched or something. Harry takes Hedwig to Professor Grubbly Plank, and McGonagall is there too, and she says like, you know that your owls are being watched, right? Like, everybody's owls are being watched, right? And that's like the first sign of Umbridge like taking everything over. And when they meet in the flu, when Sirius comes through the flu in the Gryffindor common room, he gets cut short, and they see, oh my god, okay, let me just read it. Well, I'll have to think and get back to, he broke off. His face was suddenly tense, alarmed. He turned sideways, apparently looking into the solid brick wall of the fireplace. Sirius? Said Harry anxiously. But he had vanished. Harry gaped at the flames for a moment, then turned to look at Ron and Hermione. Why did he? Hermione gave a horrified gasp and leapt to her feet, still staring at the fire. A hand had appeared amongst the flames, groping as though to catch hold of something. A stubby, short-fingered hand covered in ugly, old-fashioned rings. So it was Umbridge. She was like grabbing around in the fire. Ugh. It's actually Dobby who tells Harry about the Room of Requirement. Harry just like straight out asks him like, hey, is there a place that you know of? And Dobby's like, yeah. And then once they meet, Cho suggests Defense Association, or DA for short, and Ginny says, yeah, but we could have DA stand for Dumbledore's army, because that's what they're really afraid of, right? Which, iconic. So then they have their first match against Slytherin, and this is where Luna has her, like, lion's head that roars. And the Slytherins sing Weasley is Our King. There's also a line in it that says that he was born in a bin. Anyway, it's really mean. But then after they win. Like, Harry catches the snitch. The Gryffindor wins. Harry catches the snitch. The game is over. And then after the game is over, Crabbe hits a bludger into Harry's back, and, like, he falls off his broom. I mean, he's really close to the ground, but still, he falls off his broom. So pretty much the whole team is like around him beside Ron. Draco's totally goading them. Like, did you like our song? Do you like the lyrics that I wrote? And he starts talking crap on their parents, the Weasley's parents and Harry's parents, and Harry just, and they get into a fight. And then Umbridge is there, and she says, Harry and Fred and George, who are all fighting, all get banned from Quidditch for life, and their brooms get chained up in her office. You're thinking, how does Umbridge have authority to do that? Well, after she got a tip-off about the DA, she disbanded all teams and groups, including Quidditch, and so they had to, like, apply to be reformed, and Slytherin got reformed right away, but she made Gryffindor wait for it. So then somebody, if it was Harry or Angelina, I don't know, went to McGonagall, and McGonagall went to Dumbledore, and Dumbledore was like, that's ridiculous, and he made them into a team again. Well, she's like getting back at them because she's like, I can't have people going over my head now, can I? It's like she's just trying to stick it to the teachers. Let me read the excerpt. Well, actually, Minerva, simpered Professor Umbridge, I think you'll find that what I think does count. Now, where is it? Cornelius just sent it. I mean, she gave a false little laugh as she rummaged in her handbag. The minister just sent it. Ah, yes. She had pulled out a piece of parchment, which she now unfurled, clearing her throat fussily before starting to read what it said. Hem. Educational Decree number 25. Not another one, exclaimed Professor McGonagall violently. Well, yes, said Umbridge, still smiling. As a matter of fact, Minerva, it was you who made me see that we needed a further amendment. You remember how you overrode me when I was unwilling to allow the Gryffindor Quidditch team to reform? How you took the case to Dumbledore, who insisted that the team be allowed to play? Well, now I couldn't have that. I contacted the minister at once, and he quite agreed with me that the High Inquisitor has to have power to strip peoples of privileges, or she, that is to say, I, would have less authority than common teachers. And you see now, don't you, Minerva, how right I was in attempting to stop Gryffindor team reforming? Dreadful tempers. Anyway, I was reading our amendment. The High Inquisitor will henceforth have supreme authority over all punishments, sanctions, and removal of privileges pertaining to the students of Hogwarts, and the power to alter such punishments, sanctions, and approvals of privileges as may have been ordered by other staff members. Signed, Cornelius Fudge, Minister for Magic, Order of Merlin, First Class, etc., etc. Isn't that the most insane thing you've ever heard in your life? Oh, it just boils my freaking blood. I hate it so much. Well, then Harry and Ron get into a fight because Ron feels like he's responsible for all of this happening because he was the one who was like doing badly, etc., etc. They're fighting. Hermione's like over it. She looks out the window in the Gryffindor common room and she sees that Hagrid is back. In my opinion, this whole scene from like the beginning of like before the Quidditch match started all the way down to there, it was like, it would have been a perfect scene in a movie. Like, it all makes sense, it all flows, but there's none of it. Getting back into it, so Ron and Harry like have a fight, and Hermione's like, Hagrid's back. They go to see Hagrid. They get the story from Hagrid as far as going to see the giants, but in the movie all they say is like, I went to see the giants, I went to parlay with the giants, but somebody else got there first or got there at the same time or something. And that's pretty much what the whole story was, but it was much longer. It took much longer for him to tell it. But essentially that's what happened is he went with Madame Maxine to see the giants, and it was like not really successful because the giants were like fighting amongst each other, and then a Death Eater came and with other presents and blah blah blah. But guess who shows up at the door? Umbridge. I'm dying. So Umbridge comes, and it's wintertime, okay? Umbridge comes, she opens the door, she's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, and then she said, who's here with you? And he's like, nobody. And she's like, there's 3 sets of footprints in the snow. This scene has like stayed in my mind for eternity. Like, I think of this scene so much. Perfectly put together. Anyway, he kind of gets out of it. They're under the invisibility cloak, by the way. He kind of gets out of it. Anyway, she goes back, and they're like, oh my god, we have to go back. Well, she says to Hagrid, hey, you're back. You're going to be teaching. Well, you're on probation. You're going to be watched during your classes. So from the jump, he was being watched during his classes, and everybody's being watched during their classes. When she watches his class, she's the worst. She like mimes to him and like talks super loud because she thinks he can't understand English. And then she asks like all the wrong students, like Pansy Parkinson and stuff, if they can understand what he says, etc. Horrible. Ginny becomes the seeker in Harry's absence, and she's really good at it. She plays Quidditch, and she's good at it. One bone I have to pick with the movies, one of the many bones I have to pick with the movies, is that they make the twins very one-dimensional. They're just like the comedic relief, like they're just funny. But in the books, they're very three-dimensional. They have, they care a lot about their friends. They get in fights. They're very serious. They, the things that they care about, they care very much about. And it's not just like, oh, let's put something in Umbridge's office. It's like, no, let's take her down, whatever. So they are much more three-dimensional in the books. And I prefer that, of course. When they find out, this is coming up, but when they find out that their dad was attacked, they're very scared and they're very serious, and they are like yelling at people, trying to get things done, like trying to go in the movie. They're like, and nothing happens. No, They are there. They are upset. They're trying to find out what's happening. They're yelling at people. Their dad was attacked and they don't know what's happened. So that was like, oh yeah, the twins are really people. Movies, let's get it right. But yeah, next, Mr. Weasley's attacked. It's very similar to the movie. It's in the middle of the night. They go to Dumbledore's office. He doesn't really acknowledge Harry that much. But Harry does say, I was the snake. He doesn't, like in the movie, he kind of like goes around that saying it in the moment and that night, but he does say it in the books. He says it in Dumbledore's office that he was a snake and he attacked, blah, blah, blah. But that night they go to Sirius's, and then they can't go to St. Mungo's because St. Mungo's has to get Mr. Weasley, and then St. Mungo's has to tell Mrs. Weasley what's happened before the kids go there, because they can't have the kids going there like, how did you even know that this happened? So they have to wait like all night. Mrs. Weasley goes to St. Mungo's, and then she comes back and tells him that he's okay, and they visit him a little bit later. So yeah, they go to St. Mungo's. It's kind of a big chapter in the book. It feels like a huge thing that they took out of the movie. Overall, not that important to the story, but there were so many things that happened there. So they visit Mr. Weasley, and he's in good spirits. And Harry can like barely stand to see him because he feels so like responsible. Then they're walking around to go get tea, Harry, Ron, and Hermione, and they see Lockhart. And they like hang out with Lockhart for a little bit. And then in Lockhart's room, they see Neville and Neville's grandma. They're both visiting Neville's parents, who are in the same room as Lockhart. They're in with like what's it called, like spell misuse or spell something, because Lockhart obviously lost his memory. He still doesn't remember who he is, but they see Neville there too, and this is their first time finding out about it. Harry did hear it from Dumbledore, I think it was last year, but he didn't tell. Like, he swore that he wouldn't tell, so even Neville didn't know that he knew. Yeah, that's their first time knowing about what's going on with Neville's parents, and they do see his mom. She's like a child, almost, like in her mind, she's like a child. It's very sad. They went there twice during Christmas break to St. Mungo's, and I think that time when they saw Neville's parents, it was actually Christmas Day, I'm pretty sure. When they go back to, maybe it was Christmas Day, I don't remember, but it's still during that break. When they go back to headquarters after being at St. Mungo's, Snape is there, and he tells Harry, hey, we are going to start occlumency lessons. And he has a big fight with Sirius there, and it's so dumb. I mean, like, honestly, Snape was, like, being the more mature of the two. When it comes to Snape and Sirius, like, Sirius is the worst one of the two of them, like when they're interacting with each other. So yeah, Harry literally has to get in between them during a fight. Then they go back to school. January passes pretty much, it's uneventful. February, Harry and Cho go out for Valentine's Day to they go to, I don't remember where they go. They go somewhere in Hogsmeade. And Hermione had asked if Harry could meet him later that day, and he was like, sure, can I bring Cho? And she was like, sure, whatever. Then when they're during this date, which like wasn't going great, he says, hey, I need to go meet Hermione. Anyway, Cho gets really upset, says all this stuff, starts crying. He walks out of there. That's pretty much, like, dare I say, that's like pretty much the last of them. That's about it. So anyway, he goes to the Three Broomsticks to meet Hermione, and guess who's there with them? Luna and Rita Skeeter. Interesting group, okay? So Hermione's idea is that Rita Skeeter interview Harry for the full story of what happened with Voldemort coming back, and then they'll run it in the Quibbler, which is Luna's dad's paper. And they end up doing it. He gets interviewed right there, and they do publish it like the next week or something, because there was a lot of holes in the ministry's version of events. So it was like, if he came up with this whole story, it would be really believable, because it was like there wouldn't be any holes, and people, even though they didn't really believe the Quibbler, it would be like Rita Skeeter writing this full interview of Harry Potter would be like they would actually be getting the tea rather than just getting like bits and pieces here and there. So, because I guess it was like kind of a thing that like the stuff that the ministry was saying was actually literally not adding up. So the Quibbler publishes it the next week, and Harry gets like a ton of owls that day of people saying like giving their support or saying they're still kind of on the fence or whatever. And everybody's like reading the owls that are like crowding around him in the morning, and Umbridge comes up and she like takes 50 points or something. And it's kind of, she was dumb about it. Of course she was dumb about it. And she said like, you can't do that. that. And then she bans the Quibbler. Well, then everybody reads it. I mean, like, the fact that she banned it made it more like everyone was reading it, and they were like disguising it as other things, and she was doing like bag searches and stuff, but everyone had read it and they were all talking about it. And that's how Seamus comes around. So he like apologizes to Harry and he comes around. And then they're just doing school stuff. One thing is the sacking of Trelawney happened at about 40% of the movie. It's really early on, but it's more like 65% of the book. Like, it's way later before she starts like really like putting her power out there. When she is sacked, Dumbledore walks in, he makes his grand entrance, just like the movie, and he actually walks in like pretty much with Firenze. Firenze is the new, so he knew it was going to happen, and he went and got Firenze, and Firenze is going to be the new divination teacher. He's the centaur. He is like not a big character at all. There's actually only one class with him, and we don't really have any other like interactions with him at all. Okay, it's a later again, as you can see, obviously. In the next chapter, Umbridge finds out about Dumbledore's army, and who warns them? Dobby. Dobby comes into the DA all of a sudden and is like, you know, hitting himself because he can't tell, but he says that she knows, and they go running. Harry gets caught. She takes him to Dumbledore's office, and the snitch is Marietta. Yeah. So she actually had sneak written across her face in like pustules or something. That was a part of the like contract that Hermione had written up, or they had signed their name, and it was like, and she had told them like, oh, if anyone tells, there are going to be consequences. This was the consequences, and they couldn't get it off. But all she said was like, I have something to tell you about a secret society or secret group, but she didn't get any further than that, and Umbridge just, you know, guessed at the rest. Then when Dumbledore's like trying to get away, he stuns everyone, including Kingsley, so it doesn't look sus. And except for McGonagall and Harry. And he goes up to them and he's like, you have to do occlumency. Do not stop doing occlumency. And just a note, because this bothers me from the movie, the you have to admit Dumbledore's got style line. Kingsley did not say that. He was stunned. It was Phineas Nigellus who said it, right? Yeah, it was Phineas Nigellus who said it, which is like the great-great-grandfather of Sirius. He was one of the headmasters, so that's why his portrait is in there, and he was the one who said it. Right after Umbridge becomes headmistress, she brings Harry to her office. Not Dumbledore's office. She can't get in there. She brings Harry to her office and has him, well, he doesn't know that there's Veritaserum in it, but he could assume there is, so he pretends to drink it, and she starts like right away, she starts asking him questions about Dumbledore's whereabouts. I mean, but for real, he could have drunk it, because like he had no idea where Dumbledore was. I mean, she asked him some other stuff here and there, but it was mostly about Dumbledore. She also admits that she knew it was Sirius who was talking to him in the fire. Creepy. Then they get interrupted from this meeting because of like the twins doing some shenanigans, and this is when the twins make a swamp in the hallway. They finally got caught, and they do Accio brooms, and they get, you know, unchained from her office, and then they take the brooms and they're outie. Then Cho is the worst. She's the worst. In the movie, they made her the one who told, even though it was like Veritaserum, because Snape says you use the last on the chain girl. I think that's what he says. Anyway, it's implied that she was like had to tell, but even so, Harry like drops her. But in the books, obviously it wasn't like that because she wasn't the one who told. But she and Harry get in a fight about Marietta, and he's like, Marietta's the worst. And she's like, no, she's not. She's under so much stress. And Harry's like, she goes, her mom works in the ministry. She's under so much stress. And Harry's like, Ron's dad works in the ministry. Do you see him going around and telling people about us? I don't think so. And she like doesn't get it. She's like, and I don't think they ever talk again after that. Then there's the occlumency lessons where Harry sees Snape's memory. A lot more involved than it was in the movie. And it was much like worse. Like it makes Harry's dad look even worse, and it makes all of them look worse. All of the Marauders look worse. And then Lily was there like seeing the whole thing. So he does see that one scene of like they start with like taking their owls and they go outside, and then Harry's dad, James, like sees Snape and just like goes up to him and starts bullying him, and like, yeah, does him up and like takes his pants down, and like, and Lily is right there and she's like, stop, blah, blah, blah. And from the memory, then Harry is like, I can't see why she would ever have married him. It bothers him a lot. So much so that it like it really causes some character development that I think they missed out on the movies. In the movie, you kind of miss the point where he's like, oh my gosh, my dad is like a really bad person. I mean, you can kind of get that vibe, but in the book, it's much more explicit. He says it outright. He's like, seems like he thinks it, that Snape has been right all along about his dad. Like, all of the horrible things that Snape has said about his dad, like, he's seen them now, and they really were that bad. And he has like an existential crisis about it. And so he decides to talk to Sirius about it. And so he gets in the flue. He goes to Umbridge's flue to get to see Sirius, and Lupin is there too. And he's like, he asked them so many questions. Like, they talk for a while. He's like, why would he have been like that? How did my mom marry him? Blah, blah, blah. And Sirius is pretty much like, well, 15 is really young. And Harry's like, I'm 15. But I kind of felt like Sirius didn't, like, since I get the feeling that Sirius hasn't changed much, so I didn't understand, like, he didn't understand why it was a big deal to Harry. Because he's like, whatever, it's Snape. And he even says that. He's like, well, Snape was like the worst. So it was okay to bully him, you know, that kind of thing. And they had already gotten their fight, so we knew that was the way he felt anyway. But it just seemed very like, okay, I can't respect Sirius as much when I hear him talk about, you know, their past and what went on in such a, like, blasé way. Like, yeah, it was just whatever. But it was like, everyone has been comparing Harry to his dad for, you know, 5 years or whatever, like, constantly. And he's been like, oh my God, people think I'm just like my dad. Oh my God, oh my God. And then he found out that his dad actually sucked. And so not only is he questioning himself, he's also questioning all of those people who have been comparing him to his dad, thinking, like, did they think that my dad was a really good guy? Or have I been seeing them in the wrong light now too? And Harry has a career advice appointment with McGonagall. Just like every 5th year kid has this, but Umbridge is there. Why? Okay. And they are like fighting the entire time, Umbridge and McGonagall. And McGonagall is like defending Harry to the death. Harry, this is where Harry comes out and is like, I think I'd like to be an R, but it's actually really hard. And McGonagall's like, it's really hard. You're going to have to try harder. Like, you're going to have to work harder in your classes because you need this many owls, you need this many newts, whatever. But her and Umbridge like fight the whole time. She like staunchly defends Harry, McGonagall does. And then I misspoke. When Harry gets interrupted in Umbridge's office when she gave him the Viridium that he didn't drink, it was the first of the twins' shenanigans. That was when the fireworks went off. They were going off for weeks, and the teachers would do nothing about them because they bothered Umbridge so much. That was the first of it. Then he has the occlumency lesson. He sees the memory. He has his existential crisis. He has a career meeting with McGonagall. She defends him. Then he asks the twins to create a diversion, and he goes and sees Sirius in Umbridge's office. And he gets interrupted by the shenanigans, which is them making the swamp and getting caught and then leaving. So I had those mixed up. Then there's a Quidditch game against Slytherin, and I wasn't understanding this, but I think that this was the final game. I was not getting it at the when it was happening. But in the middle of the game, Hagrid takes Harry and Hermione aside and is like, "Hey, can you come with me?" And he looks even worse than usual. So they're like, "Yeah." So they follow him into the woods, and they follow him deep, deep, deep into the woods. They see Grop. It's kind of similar to the movies, except Grop he can talk a little bit, very, very little. He has like kind of a toddler-esque-ness about him in the movies that he does not have in the book. It's like he's, like he could kill you at any second. Not like, oh, he just needs a firm hand. It's like, no, he didn't just need a firm hand. He was much more unruly than that. He tells him that Grop is his brother and that he thinks he's going to be out soon, so he needs him to come and kind of just like take care of him or like hang out with him or whatever. And Hermione is really upset about it. He says that Grop didn't want to come back with him, and that's why it took him so long to get back. And that makes me it made me uncomfortable because he kept saying, like, he really didn't want to come, but he really didn't come. And that was why Madame Maxine ended up going back to France and not coming back with him, because it was like she tried to stick it out for a while, but she, it was taking too long. And it's like, okay, so why did you bring him back? But he's like, oh, he was really small compared to the other giants. So he was like getting, beat up or bullied or whatever. So that was why he brought him back, even though he really, really didn't want to come. There's not much said about him after that. He does not appear, to my memory, I know, I just finished this literally yesterday. He does not appear when Umbridge is being, like, taken by the centaurs. But I mean, Harry's annoyed, but Hermione especially is like, I can't believe this. I can't believe this. She's really frustrated. And they walk back out of the woods and they're singing Weasley is our king. And they're like, oh no. Well, then they realize that the lyrics have been changed to be like actually positive. And he's holding the wizard, the house cup. So he won. They won because of him. And he goes on and on, of course, for days and days about how amazing he was. And they have to eventually tell him, like, actually, we didn't see it. And they tell him about Grop and everything. He's not that upset about them not seeing it, though, which is nice. Then they start exams. And exams are, like, actually a thing in the book. And I really enjoy them. Like, I liked reading about that. I like this kind of, like, normal Harry, normal Hogwarts stuff. It goes on for pages and pages. They have, like, examiners come in from outside and, like, they have a practical and a written exam, I think, in every one of their classes, at least most of them. And then, so they have an outside examiner for Defense Against the Dark Arts, and that's why they were so serious. Because I'm thinking, like, if Umbridge is the, also the examiner at the end, why would it matter if they were really good at Defense Against the Dark Arts? But she's not. They bring out in a third party, so the person who did his was really nice and cool, and he was like, oh, I heard that you could do a corporeal Patronus, and Harry's like, oh yeah, and he just does it, and they're like, oh, so amazing. So I thought that was really like a fun touch. I just liked reading about it. But there is, during their astronomy test, when they're up in the tower, there is the happening, and this is another scene that I think about so much, and I'm so frustrated they didn't have it in the movie, because this was like truly the evilness of Umbridge. So they're up there in the tower. It's the middle of the night for their astronomy test. They're like out there looking at the stars. And in the middle of the test, somebody walks out of the doors, the castle doors below them. And it's like 4 or 5 people, and they walk straight to Hagrid's like little hut, and they can tell that one of the people is Umbridge. They go to the hut, there's some, like, they go inside, there's some, they can see them kind of moving around, whatever, and then they come out, like, Hagrid bangs out, and they're shooting stunners at him, and it's like just bouncing off of him because of his giant blood or whatever, and then they shoot one at then he starts like, and people are going flying. McGonagall like bursts out of the front doors of the castle and is like, stop, what are you doing? Like, no warning, no nothing, blah, blah, blah. Because Hagrid is not using his wand, or anything. I mean, he can't use his wand, so it's like they're literally going up against him, 4 or 5 people at a time. And McGonagall's like running down there, and then they shoot her 4 stunners to the chest all at the same time, and she goes flying and passes out. And the students are all watching this from up in their class. And then they're still stunning Hagrid, and he's like, poof, poof, to them. And then they stun Fang, because he's like trying to bite at them. And he like picks up Fang, and he just like goes running into the forest, Hagrid does. And everyone is like, they go down and get McGonagall. She has to be sent, she gets to the hospital wing. It was like way too bad. She has to be sent to St. Mungo's. Oh my God. And she's literally gone the rest of the freaking book. Like, she's out of there. So it's like the last person that they need, she's gone. So that was why it makes a little bit more sense why Harry, like, kind of freaks out at the end when he's trying to get in contact with Sirius after he had that, like, dream or vision. Because he's, like, in the book and in the movie, it's like, oh, Snape, he's, like, the last person. Well, obviously in the movie, McGonagall is still there, and that would have been the first person they went to. McGonagall was not there, okay? So, anyway, I just imagine how, like, dramatic that could be. Oh! Anyway, so on page 586, at least on my Kindle, they're captured, and Harry is, like, in Umbridge's office to talk to Sirius. He doesn't see Sirius at the house. He sees Creature, who, like, lies to him. And then he gets taken out of the fire by Umbridge, and then there's like and then they find the people who were like doing the diversion for him, which was Ginny, Ron, and Hermione and Luna, and then they also bring Neville. So in the movie, he's Malfoy's like, caught this one trying to help the Weasley girl, but you're like, that doesn't make any sense, because help the Weasley girl what? she was not involved in the, you know, that part. There was no diversion, none of that. So, anyway, they all get caught in there. They take her out to the woods. She gets taken by the centaurs. They come back out. They meet, actually, they're still in the woods when they meet the rest of the people. They take the Thestrals to the ministry, and honestly, it's very similar. The ending is really, really similar to the ending in the movie is really similar to the ending of the book. The fight in the ministry and everything. The only thing that's like really different is that, first of all, the kids get way more hurt. By the end of it, Harry is the last man standing. Everyone else has been, you know, knocked out or broken their ankle or is like going insane or is like hit with some mystery thing and they got, you know, they're like asleep / dead. Except for Neville, who has like such a horrible bloody nose that he can't even say spells. So it's like just Harry and like half of Neville by the end of it, when like before the people from the Order finally come. So it's way more like, they're not like, no, that doesn't happen. They're not like superhuman kids. Like they are literally being regular kids and they almost get taken out. And the other thing that's really different is that the Department of Mysteries like really is Department of Mysteries. Like there's a lot of rooms that they go through that all have like something weird in them. And they don't really show that. And you're thinking, why is this called Department of Mysteries? No, there's like every time they go in a room, it's something strange and something weird. It's like a maze in there. So it was much more kind of creepy in the book. And it was much more like dire because they were dying. But even down to the fight between Dumbledore and Voldemort is very, very similar. And then like all the people from the ministry coming in one time, it's all very similar. And Harry kind of being like a little bit like possessed or whatever, very similar. So that, in that case, very impressive in the movie. They did a really good job with that. And then of course there's always like some closing things that they never include in the movie. There's a little bit in the extended version of the movie, or I don't know what you call it, the TV version, whatever. There's a little bit of it more like of Harry talking to Dumbledore and Dumbledore being like, I'm sorry, and Harry being like, you don't know what I'm going through. But there's a lot of that in the book. And even like, it even comes down to Dumbledore crying because he feels so bad that he hid the prophecy from Harry for so long. And another thing is that the prophecy is not way longer, but it is longer in the book than it is in the movie. In the movie, she just says like, neither can live while the other survives, but he will have power that the Dark Lord knows not. And that was pretty much all they said. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches, which that is in the movie. Then, born to those who have thrice defied him, born as the 7th month dies, and the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal, but he will have powers the Dark Lord knows not. And either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord will be born as the 7th month dies. And he explained, he goes on and on about, like, they talk about this for a long time, and Harry is very, very upset about Sirius, but also about this prophecy, of course. And he explains, which they don't talk about this in the movie, but he explains that Neville was the other boy who this could have been applied to. So his parents had defied the Dark Lord 3 times, which they never talk about that. But and he was born at the end of July. But Voldemort had only heard part of the prophecy. That's why he wants it, obviously. And the part that he did not hear was, he shall mark him as his equal, but he will have power that the Dark Lord knows not. The meaning that Dumbledore gave to that was that since he didn't hear that part, he kind of did it without knowing, which was he marked Harry. He literally marked him. He marked him and made him into his equal. Like, he wouldn't have been his equal otherwise. So he was saying, like, if he would have heard the whole thing, he could have gone about it a different way and ignored you, and then you wouldn't have had the power to vanquish him. So that was kind of an interesting change. And so Harry was like, why can't it be Neville? Why can't it be Neville? And Dumbledore was like, it's too late. He already chose you. Like, he already gave you, like, he already made you equal. So that was really interesting. Totally, like, looked over in the book, in the movie. Literally, he goes like, so we have to, one of us has to kill the other. And Dumbledore was like, yes. And that's like it. But the prophecy is like a big part of this, the second half of this book, or, the last quarter, I guess, of this book. The scene between Harry and Dumbledore, it goes on and on. Just Harry being really frustrated and really mad. And Dumbledore feeling really, really bad and apologizing for the way that he had treated Harry. So he's like, I should have taught you occlumency. I should have been doing these things. I should have been hands-on, but I was like too afraid of, you know, Voldemort gaining access to me, which to me is like, for a second, just like get over yourself, Dumbledore. And in the book, the prophecy, actually I don't remember what happens with the prophecy in the movie, but the prophecy gets broken accidentally kind of by Neville. Well, it was both Harry and Neville, but it gets broken accidentally and neither of them hear what it says. Then later, Harry sees it in Dumbledore's memory. So that was how he saw it in the final, you know, finally. So and that's why, like, Lucius really messed up, and that's why he kind of gets the boot from Voldemort, essentially. Some other things of note that are kind of different from the movies and books that are, you know, something worth mentioning. Number one, these are just notes I made while watching the movie. Ron didn't say you need a toilet when Hermione is explaining the room of requirement. Harry like found out about the room requirement from Dobby, and he remembered like, oh, last year Dumbledore said that he mentioned the room requirement by way of saying that the like castle provided a toilet for him. So Ron didn't say that, and Hermione wasn't like, charming. She didn't know about the room requirement either. So it wasn't like she was super smart and he was being super like dumb. Next. Hermione doesn't have any like special dueling talents. Like they make it seem like she has like some special talents when Ron's like, I'll go easy on you. They were very equally matched when it comes to dueling. She would still maybe get things first when it came to like jinxes and stuff. But when it actually came to dueling, she was not better. So that scene was also dumb. Neville did not tell Harry about his parents being tortured by Bellatrix after the convicts escaped. So he wasn't like, when he stands in the room and he's looking at the pictures and he's like, 16 years ago, my parents, well, none of that happened. He, even once they find out about it and he knows they know about it, he never mentions it. Like he is very, I don't want to say ashamed, but like he doesn't want anyone to know about it. He's very secretive of it. Umbridge and the Inquisitorial Squad, they did not break into the room of requirement and see everyone just standing there. That was not what happened, okay? They only knew about Harry. They didn't have confirmation of any of them. And they didn't have, so then they also have like they have a detention that's like in one big room, all of them getting detention and writing on their hands. Didn't happen because they didn't know who was in the in the DA. Another thing I want to mention is that at the very end, Dumbledore says like, Snape, you need to put more trust in Snape. He does say like, I'm sorry, I didn't realize how old wounds don't heal and like how he hasn't healed from what your dad did to him. But also like you need to cut him some slack. And he said like he even went so far as to give Umbridge fake Veritaserum for you when she was trying to do you in. So I don't know, I thought that was kind of a cool little tidbit. I mean, we already know, Snape of the movies is good enough. Like, Snape of the movies is much better. Like, he's much more of a likable character. And same with Draco than they are in the books. Like, they're just slimy in the books. Like, they're not, they really, really suck. But they are better in the movies. And I will say that, like, Snape's arc has begun. Not just because Harry saw those memories, but, like, other than that, his arc has begun. Anyway, this is the differences, 10,000 pages of differences. This is the differences between Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, the movie, and the book. What did you think? What are some other differences that you've noticed? It was so much fun. I love doing these. I can't wait to read the next book. The 6th one is like far and beyond my favorite of the like later movies. It's been so long since I've read it, so I'm really looking forward to reading it and doing another one of these. I loved this. Sorry it took me, a very long time, but I'm here and I'm doing it. So anyway, until next time.